Now there's one more 3D shape that we have to learn, and that's the cube. Cubes are the beginning of making flat surfaces. So we're going to start with a blank canvas as usual, and here we have it up on the screen already. And we're going to do a couple things. Keep with our same standard charcoal settings we've been using. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can do this easily. And I'm just going to divide it into 4 pieces here. So just make, cut it in half one way, cut it half the other way. Doesn't have to be accurate or anything, so that just looks fine to me. And we're going to start up here in the upper quadrant on the left. And I'm going to just show you how to draw a cube. And you start with making a rectangle. So let's start with making a rectangle. So I'm going to just go like this and like that. Make parallel lines and connect them together. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make some lines that go towards the back of the cube or away from the cube because it may be coming forward. We're not exactly sure. So those are going to be 4 parallel lines. And to do that easily, we talked about the trick last time when I showed you how to do a straight line of tilting the paper so that you have a vertical line for everything. And so I'm going to do exactly that in this case. Okay. And so now I have my 4 lines. And I'm going to rotate it back again. And let's zoom in a bit so we get a good view here. And then I'm going to just pick a place on these lines and drop a vertical like that. Now I've made some intersections here, and where those intersections are, I'm going to go ahead and make horizontal lines and then another vertical line. Okay, and there's your cube. Now, as you can see with this one, there will be some overdrawing. You can erase that if you want. I generally don't, but I also tend not to put all of these lines in here. So that's the basic cube. Now let's go ahead and try to look a little bit more on shading. So I'm going to do this again. And this time I'm not going to rotate the paper though. I'm also going to bring down my size a little bit so it's a little less prominent on those edges. Okay, so I got a rectangle. And I'm going to go up like that, up like that. And there you go. And that's a nice cube. So I just put those lines in that I need. Now there are other lines that you can put in here. So we're going to look at that next. But I want to show you how to shade these guys because they're a little different than what we've been doing before. Now we've got sharp edges here. And a sharp edge needs to make sure that your shading is going to be of a uniform color and that it makes dramatic changes between 2 sides. So for example, I'm going to set down the opacity here a little bit. I'll bring up my size of my brush and I'm going to start, I'll leave a little more. And I'm going to start putting in color here. But I'm going to be very careful of those edges. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to say the back one here. And I'm going to zoom in on that so we can see it well. I'm actually going to bring down my brush so I can be more accurate. And you can see how sharp that edge is between those two. And if the light was coming from above, it would be white like we have here. Now, I'm just going to use a blend, and I'm going to undo this afterwards. But if you blended this, I'll actually make a little bit bigger blend here. You can see what happens. It's hard to tell where the edge is, and that's where you get with a rounded edge. Now, this is really difficult, and it messes up the drawing because we've got a square edge on the top of the box, so that makes it even more difficult. So I'm going to undo all that. So there's our box. Let's do another box. And I'm going to do one down here. And I just want to point out that it could be any direction we want. So let's go ahead and do this again. I'm going to again use a small size for my brush to start. And come down a little bit. 1 line, 2 lines. Okay, so I got a rectangle. Again, I'll make those lines. Now I'm going to do something different now. I'm going to actually connect the lines this way. And as I do, I'm also going to erase a line here. Okay. I'm going to erase this line right here. Okay. Because this is now going to become a side, and it's now going to project out towards us. That original piece is not going to be there anymore. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to my line, and I'll finish up my rectangle. I'm going to erase out what I have in here. And now it's facing towards us. We're seeing the bottom of it. And I can erase some of that too. And so now we have a box that's going in a different direction. And let's say that the light now is going to be coming from the same direction that we had originally. So we'll make this part all white. So I'm going to go erase all that. And I'm going to have a dark bottom. And that's too big. Zoom that in a little so we can see it better. Okay. And then let's say this side here is a lighter color like that. And now you can see we've got a different projection. We use the same lines but made a different projection. So you could look at that and see what's going on. Now the other thing I want to point out is you don't have to use a rectangle. Anything can be projected into the background like this. So you can use other shapes. My favorite shape happens to be a trapezoid. So let me go do the trapezoid here, and I'll show you one of my favorite things to look at for still life drawing. So there's my trapezoid. I'm going to do it with the small side down. And just as we've already done, I'm making 3 parallel lines this time. The fourth one's behind this object, so I don't need it. Again, connect those lines. And we've got this object here. Now, what I do with this object, extra little piece here, is I'm going to put an angle in there like this. And then I'm going to attach to that angle 2 pieces like that. And this becomes one of the classic takeout cartons that you may have seen from many restaurants. And so I make this one because it's a nice one to use for a lot of different shading and shadowing. And then I can go ahead and do exactly what we've been doing in the past. Is I'll zoom this up. I'll make this part over here dark. And it's so thin, I think I'm going to just leave it the way I have it. Like so. Okay. And I'll do this side here first roughly, and then I'll bring in my brush a little bit here and add a little color to that. And I want to show you one other thing. Let's say that I don't have a lid on this. I'm going to put an extra line in here. And you may have extra lines showing, which might be an internal corner, which I'm going to shade a little bit here, just for fun. Okay. And so I'm going to get a couple extra shading going on here as I do this. And I like putting a little handle on there, like so. And so I've got myself a little takeout carton. So I've figured out how to do all of these different kinds of cubes. Anything with a plane will work with this. So that's your challenge. Make a whole bunch of cubes or things that look like cubes, like I did with the takeout carton, and send them to me as usual at Steve_Lipton on Twitter. And if you have questions, go ahead and ask me, and we will work from there and find out what next we're going to be doing. Again, as usual, in the description below, you'll find more links to a whole bunch of different other stuff, including some downloads for different files that you may need. And of course, the subscription to YouTube if you want to just keep on listening to this. So do that so you won't miss a single episode. Till next time, let's keep drawing.